What's going on, everybody? It's Robbie, and I am back for another reaction. This is going to be coming from the YouTube channel, The Red Stick Man, how every black celebrity really passed away. You know, there's so many of our legends that were, taken before their time. Don't know what the cause of their passing was. I know some of them probably was due to some sort of substance abuse, but I'd be curious to see what, these people passed away from. A lot of them, just based off the thumbnail, I could, some of them I already know, but there's a lot that I don't know. But yeah, let's not waste no time, y'all. Let's get to the video.
Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye Sr. beat his son throughout childhood. As Marvin Gaye became one of the biggest musicians in the world, the man behind What's Going On and Sexual Healing, the resentment between them only got worse. Marvin had money and fame. His father had neither. By the time Marvin came home to his parents' house in January 1984, people close to the family described the atmosphere as the most tense they had ever seen. In the months before, Marvin had told friends and journalists openly that he wanted to die. He said it in interviews. He said it in private. 3 months after moving back in, he bought his father a .38 revolver as a gift. And
yeah, that was the biggest mistake he could have ever made. That's the last thing you should have brought somebody who you had tension with all those years growing up. 38 revolver? No. You need to get him some slippers. You know what I'm saying? Get him a I wouldn't even say a toolkit, because you can use that too as a weapon. Get him a teddy bear or something. I don't know. Not no damn 38 revolver.
For protection. Heavily addicted to cocaine and struggling with deep paranoia, the singer feared that intruders or hitmen were plotting to kill him and believed the gun would keep his parents safe. April 1st, 1984, Los Angeles, California. Marvin's parents get into a fight over an insurance document. He steps in to break it up. His father, Marvin Gaye Sr., follows him to his bedroom, puts the .38, the one Marvin gave him, against his chest and pulls the trigger. The bullet goes through his heart. Marvin Gaye collapses to the floor. He is dead before the ambulance arrives. He is 1 day away from his 45th birthday. He had just finished his best album in years, paid off a long debt to Motown Records, and was about to start a major comeback tour. Gaye Sr. is arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Then doctors find a brain tumor he never knew he had. A defense doctor says the tumor changed how he acted and made him more likely to do something violent. The charge is dropped down to voluntary manslaughter, meaning a killing done in the heat of the moment, not planned ahead of time. Gaye Sr. takes a plea deal. He serves 0 days in prison. He dies in 1998. The tumor had never shown up in any exam before the shooting. Whitney Houston.
Crazy.
In early February 2012, Clive Davis, the music executive who signed Whitney Houston, produced her biggest albums and managed the direction of her career for decades, flew her to Beverly Hills for his annual Grammy weekend party. He arranged no security for her, no sober companion, no personal handler of any kind. Whitney had been publicly open about struggling with drug addiction for years. Clive knew that, but did nothing. She was 48.
Isn't it ironic how when you look at a lot of these celebrities, not just her, but just a lot of them, how they always end up having some sort of substance abuse? Like, is it really that bad in the industry where you then start doing substances to help cope with your reality that everybody is looking at you, what you're doing next, or you fell off, or you owe this person, you owe that person, you owe the label? It's like, you know what? Rather than take a trip to go decompress and reset, I'm gonna just use some substances. Like, it's just ironic how that ends up like that. You know what I'm saying? I know I'm not the only one that feels like that.
8 years old. She arrived in Los Angeles 6 days before the party. On February 11th, her assistant found her face down in the bathtub in room 434 of the Beverly Hilton Hotel, 2 floors above the ballroom where the Clive Davis party was already running. The coroner ruled accidental drowning, with cocaine use and heart disease listed as contributing factors.
Wow.
She had been in the water for somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour before she was found. After the body was found, the party did not stop. Clive Davis made the personal decision to continue the event after her death was confirmed. Chaka
Damn,
Khan,
Clive? Like, what the hell? He just said, you know what? Look, this party is gonna keep going. I'm gonna spend all this money on food, drink. We'll worry about that at a later time. That's crazy that they just kept the party going.
Fellow music legend who had known Whitney for decades went on CNN and called that decision complete insanity. In Vanity Fair, she said Whitney had been brought to Los Angeles with, in her exact words, nothing in place to keep her or to insulate her. She said Whitney felt compelled to be there for Clive, and that the pressure of that obligation with no protection around her is what killed her. A private investigator later claimed that security camera footage from the Beverly Hilton showed two men entering room 434 that night, described as drug dealers, reportedly there to collect a debt said to be $1.5 million. The debt was never confirmed. The footage was never publicly released. On January 31st, 2015, Whitney's daughter, Bobby Christina, was found face down and unconscious in a bathtub in her home in Georgia. She died 6 months later. Same position, same outcome, same family, 3 years apart. Michael Jackson. In the spring of 2009, AEG Live, one of the largest concert promoters in the world, had 50 sold-out shows at the O2 Arena in London, booked for Michael Jackson, the best-selling music artist in recorded history. The tour was called This Is It. It was the most talked-about musical comeback in a generation. Opening night was 6 weeks away. AEG needed Jackson healthy enough to perform. To make that happen, they hired a doctor named Conrad Murray, a cardiologist from Las Vegas, as his personal doctor at a salary of $150,000 per month.
Damn, 150,000, 100 bands of them. Man, listen, you pay me that much money, Michael Jackson wouldn't have nothing to worry about. Like, what do you need? Okay, I'm gonna make sure you straight. You getting the proper rest, proper medicine, everything is on point. No way am I screwing that up.
Murray was not a sleep specialist. He was not an anesthesiologist. He was a heart doctor. What AEG needed was a doctor willing to do whatever Jackson asked. What Jackson asked for nearly every night for 2 months was propofol, a powerful drug used to put patients fully to sleep before surgery. Murray was giving it to him in his bedroom, not in a hospital, in his bedroom. On June 25, 2009, in Holmby Hills, Los Angeles, Michael Jackson stops breathing. A 911 call goes out at 12:21 in the afternoon. He is pronounced dead at 2:26 p.m. at UCLA Medical Center. He is 50 years old. The cause of death, an overdose of propofol and other sedatives. Conrad Murray was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in 2011 and sentenced to 4 years in prison. He served 2. Jackson's estate sued AEG Live, arguing the company knew Murray was not qualified, but hired him anyway. AEG argued Jackson had personally chosen Murray. The jury sided with AEG. Nobody else was charged. At the time of his death, Jackson had significant personal debt, and AEG had hundreds of millions tied to tour insurance and production costs. Jackson's music catalog, his own recordings, plus a 50% share of the Sony/ATV publishing library, which included half of the Beatles' entire catalog, was valued at around $2 billion. It has changed hands multiple times since 2009. Aaliyah. In August 2001, the production team for Aaliyah's Rock the Boat music video wrapped filming in the Bahamas and needed to fly the crew back to the United States. Video director Hype Williams had been offered the use of musician Lenny Kravitz's private jet for the whole crew. He turned it down. Instead, Williams pushed for a small chartered Cessna 402 prop plane.
Now, imagine that. Lenny Kravitz offers you his private jet, which is, a lot bigger than that Cessna plane, and you turned it down. Why? Why would you turn that down? It's crazy, man.
The plane was licensed to carry 8 passengers. 9 people were going. Aaliyah Donna Horton, R&B artist, actress, and one of the most successful young musicians in the world at 22 years old. did not want to board. According to eyewitness testimony documented in journalist Kathy Iandoli's 2021 biography, Baby Girl, Aaliyah was given a sleeping pill without her knowledge and carried onto the aircraft unconscious after she had explicitly said she would not get on. The pilot had cocaine and alcohol in his system. On August 25, 2001, the plane takes off from Marsh Harbor, climbs to approximately 200 feet, and crashes into a marsh near the end of the runway. Aaliyah and 8 others die. The official finding was pilot error. The plane was overloaded and the pilot was impaired. Both of those things are almost certainly true. What the official finding does not address is who made the decision to put her on that plane over her direct objection, after a private jet had already been offered and turned down. A theory has circulated for more than 2 decades linking the decision back to Jay-Z. The claim being that he had a romantic interest in Aaliyah, that she had chosen her manager Damon Dash instead, and that Hype Williams was the connection between Jay-Z and the charter decision. There is no direct evidence for the accusation. Those 3 questions, who gave...
Yeah, let me tell you some. Those are questions that will probably never get answered. Now, of course, these things have been circulating for years. And I have noticed how Jay-Z is kind of trying to like get back out there in the music space and get people interested. Now, he did do that freestyle that a lot of people don't really care for, said it was corny. And yeah, I mean, we may very well just be witnessing the end of that aura or allure of Jay. Like he's no longer that guy in the industry. Like, look, he can get you blackballed. He can get you this or that and the third. Like, yeah, it might just be over. And if this was to be true, that's, you know, again, this is for educational purposes, but if that was something that happened, like, yo, what kind of person are you for real?
Gave her the pill, who carried her onto the aircraft, and why Williams, the person who pushed hardest for that charter, never boarded it, were never formally investigated. No inquiry was opened. No one was ever asked to answer them under oath. The official finding closed on the pilot, and everything above him was left untouched. Prince. For 20 years, Prince Rogers Nelson had been in a public legal war with Warner Brothers Records over his master recordings, the original recordings of every song he had ever made. He refused to make new music for the label. He changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol in protest.
Yeah.
He wrote the word slave on his face in public. In early 2016, he finally won the masters back. He was 57 years old. He was also dependent on opioid painkillers, a dependency that had grown over years after a series of hip surgeries. His doctor, Howard Schulenberg, had been writing opioid prescriptions not in Prince's name, but in the name of his personal assistant, Kirk Johnson. For privacy, Schulenberg later said. Drugs in Johnson's name were found in multiple rooms throughout Paisley Park, Prince's private home and recording studio in Chanhassen, Minnesota. On April 21, 2016, Prince is found not breathing in an elevator at Paisley Park. Paramedics try to bring him back for more than 20 minutes. He is pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of death, confirmed 6 months later, accidental fentanyl overdose. The pills he had been taking looked exactly like prescription Vicodin, a standard painkiller. They were fake. They contained fentanyl, a drug roughly 50 times stronger than what was on the label. The source of those pills was never identified.
It's always something, man. It's always somebody out there tampering with goods, tampering with substances, and then you go and taking it like, oh, you know, this is what's on the bottle, and then come to find out it's something, like they said, 50 times stronger that your body can't even handle. And at that age, I mean, he was in his, what, 50s? So it's like, man, what the hell?
Investigators went through every device he owned, every account, every message. Nothing traced to a supplier. Schulenberg paid a $30,000 fine. He was never charged with a crime. Nobody was named. Nobody was charged. Prince died without a will, leaving an estate worth between $150 million and $300 million with no named heirs. 3 months before his death, he had finally won back his music after a 20-year fight. Tupac Shakur.
Nothing suspicious about that?
By September 1996, Tupac Shakur, one of the most famous rappers alive, the man behind California Love and Dear Mama, had spent months in a very public feud with rapper Biggie Smalls and Bad Boy Records, with both sides making threats in public and on record. Tupac was signed to Death Row Records, run by a man named Suge Knight. Death Row had its own ongoing beef with the Crips, a Los Angeles street gang. On September 7, 1996, Tupac is ringside at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas to watch Mike Tyson fight. Tyson wins in the first round. After the fight, Tupac's crew spots a man named Orlando Anderson, a member of the Crips, in the hotel lobby. They beat him badly on camera, with security watching. Then they leave. Suge invites Tupac to an after-party. Tupac says he wants to take a limousine. Suge talks him out of it. Tupac gets in the passenger seat of Suge's black BMW instead. On Flamingo Road, a white Cadillac pulls up alongside them at a red light. 4 shots come through the passenger window. 2 hit Tupac in the chest. He survives that night. He survives 6 more days. On September 13, 1996, he dies of internal bleeding and respiratory failure at the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada. He is 25 years old.
Crazy,
Suge Knight,
man.
who was in the driver's seat 2 feet away, was hit by a small piece of glass. He walked out of the hospital the same night Tupac was admitted. The case goes unsolved for 27 years. In 2023, a man named Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, Orlando Anderson's uncle, is finally arrested and charged with murder. Keefe D. had been talking about it publicly for years, in interviews and in a book he wrote. He said he was in the Cadillac. He said he handed someone in the back seat the gun. He never named who pulled the trigger.
Of course
Orlando
not.
Anderson was shot and killed in a separate incident in 1998. Jimi Hendrix. In the spring of 1970, Jimi Hendrix, the most innovative rock guitarist in the world, had been trying to fire his manager, Michael Jeffrey, for several months. The two men had a serious financial dispute. What Hendrix did not know was that Jeffrey had already taken out a $2 million life insurance policy on him. On the night of September 17, 1970, Hendrix is at the Samarkand Hotel in Notting Hill, London, staying with his German girlfriend, Monica Dannemann. At some point that night, he takes 9 of Dannemann's prescribed sleeping pills.
Why, though?
The standard doctor...
Why do you need 6 sleeping pills, my guy? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
approved dose is half of 1 tablet. He takes 9. By the time Dannemann calls an ambulance the following morning, he is already dead. The official ruling was an open verdict, meaning the coroner could not determine whether the death was accidental or on purpose. Dannemann gave different accounts at different times, different versions of when she found him, what position he was in, and whether she called for help right away. The paramedics who arrived said they found him upright in the ambulance, soaked in red wine, not consistent with someone who died quietly in bed overnight. Years later, a roadie named James Wright claimed that Jeffrey told him privately, in a separate conversation, that he had killed Hendrix, that he forced pills into his mouth and poured wine down his throat. There is no other witness to that conversation. Bob Marley. December 1976. Kingston, Jamaica. A man named Carl Colby, the son of CIA Director William Colby, the man who ran the Central Intelligence Agency, gives Bob Marley a pair of boots as a gift. According to accounts from multiple people who were present, including Bob's manager Don Taylor, when Bob put the boot on, something sharp pierced his right big toe. The CIA had a documented and active interest in destabilizing Jamaican politics throughout the 1970s. Bob Marley was not just a musician, he was the most politically powerful voice in the entire Caribbean. Someone who openly refused to take sides in Jamaican party politics and had real influence over hundreds of thousands of people. His CIA file exists. Part of it is still classified to this day. In July 1977, 6 months after the boot, Bob is playing soccer when he injures that same right toe. The wound will not heal. A doctor's test confirms acral lentiginous melanoma, a rare and aggressive skin cancer that grows underneath the nail. For religious reasons tied to his Rastafarian faith, Bob says no to having the toe removed. The cancer spreads to his brain, his lungs, and his liver over the next 4 years. He dies on May 11th, 1981, at 36 years old, on a flight from Germany back to Jamaica. He never makes it home. The medical account of his death is entirely possible on its own. Carl Colby has never publicly answered a single question about the boots. The question that has never been answered is how something sharp ended up inside a pair of boots, handed as a gift to the most politically
You see, this is the thing that kind of blows my mind, is that why wasn't there an immediate response, or why wasn't anyone there to take action when he got poked by whatever was in this boot, if that's what happened? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not have that looked into? That's weird.
dangerous musician in the Caribbean, Eazy-E. In the early 1990s, Eric Eazy-E Wright, founding member of NWA and co-founder of Ruthless Records, one of the people who built West Coast rap, had a falling out with Suge Knight, the founder of Death Row Records. Suge had pulled several of Eazy-E's artists, including Dr. Dre, away from Ruthless, under circumstances Eazy-E later described as threats and coercion. By early 1995, Eazy-E had started preparing legal action against Death Row Records. On February 24, 1995, he checks himself into Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, believing he has a bad case of asthma. He is 30 years old. Within 24 hours, doctors tell him he has AIDS. 1 month later, on March 26, 1995, he is dead. The speed of his decline was almost impossible to explain medically, from first hospital visit to death in fewer than 30 days. His publicist, who announced the diagnosis publicly at Eazy's own request, later said Eazy himself could not believe how fast his body was shutting down. The official explanation was that he had gotten HIV through unprotected sex with multiple partners over many years. In 2003, 8 years after Eazy's death, Suge Knight appears on Jimmy Kimmel Live. Nobody asks him about Eazy-E. He brings it up himself. He tells the audience there are ways to inject someone with HIV using a needle so small the person never feels it and never knows it happened. He names no one. He is smiling. The audience laughs. The interview still exists and can be watched today. Eazy-E's son has publicly stated he believes his father was murdered. Eazy-E's former manager has said the same thing. Suge Knight is currently serving a 28-year prison sentence for a separate vehicular manslaughter conviction. Sam Cooke. In 1964, Sam Cooke, the man who wrote "A Change Is Gonna Come," the most commercially successful black recording artist in America, was 6 days away from signing a deal that would give him full ownership of his master recordings. No black artist had ever achieved that level of control over their own music in the history of the industry. For months before December, his manager Alan Klein had been in a financial dispute with him over royalties and contract terms. On the night of December 11, 1964, Sam Cooke and Alan Klein have dinner together in Los Angeles. After dinner, Cooke goes to the Hacienda Motel in South Los Angeles with a woman named Elisa Boyer. He is 33 years old. By 3 in the morning, he is dead. The official story: Boyer said Cooke tried to attack her. She grabbed his clothes and ran out of the room, and then Cooke, wearing nothing but a jacket and one shoe, kicked in the door of the motel office looking for her. The motel manager, a woman named Bertha Franklin, shot him once in the chest. The ruling was justifiable homicide. The investigation lasted exactly 72 hours. The physical evidence did not match this account. The wound pattern was not consistent with someone charging the shooter. Boyer had a prior arrest for prostitution and was never seriously investigated after the ruling. Bertha Franklin had connections to the motel owner, who had ties to the music industry. Nobody looked at the dinner with Klein and the motel in the same 72-hour window. On December 17th, 6 days after the shooting, the contract that would have given Sam Cooke ownership of his recordings expired, unsigned. Biggie Smalls. In September 1996, Tupac Shakur was shot and killed in Las Vegas. 6 months later, on March 9, 1997, Christopher Biggie Wallace, known as the Notorious B.I.G., widely considered one of the greatest rappers of all time, is in Los Angeles for the Soul Train Music Awards. After an after-party at the Peterson Automotive Museum, his GMC Suburban stops at a red light on Wilshire Boulevard at 12:30 in the morning. A dark green Chevrolet Impala pulls up alongside. Someone fires 4 shots through the passenger window. Biggie is hit once in the right hip, once in the back, once in the right forearm, and once in the chest. The chest shot severs his aorta, the main blood vessel coming out of the heart. He is pronounced dead at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center 30 minutes later. He is 24 years old. No one is ever charged. No weapon is ever recovered. The case is still officially open. 27 years of investigation produced 2 completely different theories and 0 arrests. The first, the murder was ordered by Suge Knight as payback for Tupac's death, with a Compton Crips member named Wardell Poochie Faust identified as the likely shooter. Faust was killed in a separate shooting in 2003. The second theory was put together by former LAPD detective Russell Poole over 20 years of independent work, that the murder was set up by Death Row Records and carried out by a corrupt LAPD.
Which makes absolutely no sense because Biggie had nothing to do with Pac's passing at all. Biggie wasn't even in LA. That whole Tupac situation was behind some gang stuff, why he got taken out. You know what I mean? So somebody just felt like someone needed to pay for that. And it ultimately ended up being Biggie Smalls, even though he had nothing to do with that, just because they had words on wax. You know what I'm saying? And so he had to lose his life because people felt like, mind you, Tupac is not even from the West Coast. I mean, yeah, he lived there, but his birth certificate says City of New York. He's not from the West Coast. He's from New York City. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
PD officer named David Mack, who had documented financial connections to Suge Knight. Poole spent the rest of his life chasing this theory. He died of a heart attack in 2019 while actively being interviewed by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department about the Biggie case. The city of Los Angeles later paid $1.5 million to settle a lawsuit from Biggie's mother, Valletta Wallace, without admitting any wrongdoing, after documents suggested LAPD had gotten in the way.
All right, that's going to be the end of that video. You know, one thing I took away from all of this is that when you're a musician, I mean, you basically sign your life away. And your catalog, your music is worth more than gold to these record executives. And they will go to, at least in my opinion, they will go to different extremes to make sure that that is kept intact long after you're gone, even if it means, you know, you being deleted. You know what I'm saying? That's what'll happen. You feel me? Because most of these passings with these artists, it has something to do with publishing, contracts, ownership, things like that. So, yeah. Now, of course, there was some in there that was just like, okay, like the Biggie Tupac thing. Now, I did hear that Biggie was planning to leave Bad Boy. I heard, you know, I'm sure that's something that some of y'all have heard. I've heard that too. He was going to leave Bad Boy, and, you know, him and Jay were cooking up an album. It's called The Commission. And so, yeah, we didn't get to see that. But y'all let me know what y'all think. You know what I'm saying? If y'all made it this far. Make sure you chin check the like button, take the subway, and be sure to sound off in the comments until they kick y'all up out of there. That being said, it's your boy Robbie. Till the next video, we out of here.